Welcome back, everyone, and I hope you used that opportunity to have a little virtual boogie-woogie around the room. I know I did anyway, to get my steps in. So now I present to you a video on One ICF. The recorded discussion is moderated by Pat Mathews, MCC, our Global Enterprise Board of Directors Chair, and panelists Magda, Mook, CEO, and Vice Presidents of the 6 family organizations. So we will be responding to any questions you may have in the chat throughout the presentation and afterwards. So enjoy it. Thank you.
So when ICF was founded in 1995, its purpose was to give credibility to an emerging profession and give coaches a place to connect with one another. In the 25 years that followed, ICF grew to become the world's largest organization of professionally trained coaches and the leading voice for the global coaching community. In 2020-2021, we unveiled a new ICF brand and the ICF ecosystem. The ICF ecosystem reflects ICF interests in the many areas of the coaching industry, represented by 6 unique family organizations that make up the whole, or as we like to call it, One ICF. It's an extension of our change in philosophy, a better illustration of how all the stakeholders in our sphere can relate to and be part of One ICF. In this panel discussion, you'll hear from the CEO of ICF, Magda Mook, as well as the Vice President of each family organization, or as we call them, FO. Panelists, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and your role within ICF, and I'm going to actually call on each of you so that you're not talking over each other. So first, Magda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Pat. My name is Magda Mook, and I'm a CEO of International Coaching Federation, coaching only for, 2 and a little bit years since we changed the name, and super happy to share some of the philosophy, as you said, Pat, and also structure behind this new arrangement.
Thank you, Magda. Next, Steve.
Steve Weiss, Vice President of Professional Coaches. Thank you.
Thank you. Coura.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Pat. My name is Coura Badiane. I'm the Vice President for the ICF Foundation. Nice to see you all today.
Great. Thanks, Coura. Robert, you're next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Robert Garcia, and I'm with ICF Coaching and Organizations. Great to be here.
Thanks, Robert. Alicia, you're next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alicia Hullinger, and I'm the Vice President for ICF Thought Leadership Institute. Great to see everyone. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Carrie.
Thank you so much, Pat, and welcome, everyone. I'm Carrie Abner, Vice President of ICF Credentials and Standards. So nice to be with you all today.
Great. Welcome. And Luke.
Good to see everyone today. Luke Davis, Vice President for ICF Coaching Education.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you, panelists. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each panelist a question that one of the most commonly asked questions that each of the family organizations and One ICF gets. And then if we have time, we'll also open it up for questions afterwards. So we're going to start with Magda. And your question to start off with, Magda, what benefits does this new business structure bring to ICF stakeholders?
Thank you, Pat. And how much time do we
not
get?
more than 4 or 5 minutes, Magda.
Because it could take us significant time. As some of the people in the chat, VG, good to see you, mentioned that there was a pre-work, and hopefully most of you did see that. Also kind of tying to what Pat said in her opening, this new business structure is merely a reflection of a new philosophy of the ICF. And that new philosophy is actually not that new. When ICF was first created in 1995, it was to give credibility to the coaching profession. And And coaching profession is, of course, professional coaches, but it is credentialing. It is coaching education. That's where it all starts, right? It is thought leadership. It is engaging new stakeholders in our ICF sphere of influence. So this is what we're really talking about, sphere of impact and influence. And this new business structure allows us to have a stronger voice in each and every facet of our one ICF system. You saw it yesterday. We crossed the line of 50,000 members around the globe. We crossed the line over 40,000 credentials. Luke will tell you later about how many programs we have accredited with ICF and how quickly this program is growing as well. Alicia will tell you more about thought leadership and putting us on a map of being a partner with academic institutions, with more of a research-oriented institutions in how coaching is being shaped and where we're going to the future. Same with the coaching in organizations. We hear it all the time that organizations are engaging coaches, that they are building coaching cultures. Again, our family organization of coaching in organizations can really facilitate that growth as much. And the foundation, last but not least, of course, is, and I am just quoting the vision and mission, is amplifying and accelerating social progress because and through coaching. So all in all, what it means is that one ICF, as we call it, is really making sure that our voice is being heard in broader groups, that we are having an influence in broader populations, and because of that we are building that awareness of coaching and appreciation for coaching everywhere we are. And what that means is that we're building market for our professional coaches, and we're also building market for professionally trained, credentialed, or what Pat would like it, quality coaching. We are making market for quality coaching, and for that, I think we are supporting each and every member of this organization. So that's a very short snapshot of why one ICF and how we are stronger, because we have ability of leveraging each organization and being leveraged by each organization for the greater outcome for the whole.
Thank you, Magda. Yeah, and as I think Weiss put in the chat, if you didn't see the video explaining each family organization, that's really helpful background. So Steve, the next question is for you. How do chapters engage with one ICF and the 6 family organizations?
So yeah, let me start by saying this. I think the most important thing is to say that just because we're 6 family orgs, that doesn't mean that people have to go to a variety of different places for what they want or need. Your first point of contact is your regional team. Your regional directors and your regional managers. It's one of the larger teams in our organization, and that's our role. It's to have the resources to respond and support to whatever a chapter needs regarding the entire one ICF and their operations. We'll either have the answers for what you need and or what you want to do, or we will be able to find an easy way to connect you to where to get that answer without you having to hunt and peck to figure it out yourself. I should also note that, with regard to this, we are constantly working to improve here. We want our regional teams to be excellent in this regard and in everything that we do. And so we are looking at new collateral that helps explain some of the programs and services we have in the different FOs. We're looking at, training our teams and having new processes that help facilitate what I'm describing in the best way possible. And then, I guess finally, just to sort of put a bow on it, Pat, look, we're 6 family organizations, but we are one ICF. And so what our job as a regional team is to, work with the chapters to be able to put a one ICF face into their regions to do the things that we want to do for our organization.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Very important information about the regional folks as well. So thanks for that. The next question is going to be answered a little bit by each of the vice presidents. And the question is, how are the family organizations valuable to the chapter? As I said, I have one question for each of the vice presidents, and they represent some of the most commonly asked questions that we get for each of the family organizations. So Coura, I'm going to start with you with these. What are the basic differences between Ignite and the social impact projects of the ICF Foundation?
Thank you, Pat. Absolutely. That's a great question that we do get quite often. I would just start by saying just a little bit about social impact and how we define it at the foundation. So we define social impact as significant positive changes that address pressing social challenges correlating to the ripple effect that coaching will have on social system change organization. So that being said, this is kind of our theory of change, that we're able to have an impact on society by identifying insertion points where access to coaching is able to make a difference on society. So that being said, there are a couple of differences between the Ignite initiative and the coaching for social impact projects. In terms of project design, the length of the project, the network, the support, and the intended impact. Ignite has 6 months, up to 10 sessions project that are open to anybody that are revolved to supporting the United Nations 2030 agenda or the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So in order to do that, you can be either an ICF chapter, you can be a credential ICF coaches, and you have to identify an organization to partner with. We provide you with a toolkit to be able to develop that project. And at the end of that 6 months, we encourage you to kind of share that data for us so we can see the impact and do that storytelling to be able to share with the rest of the ecosystem how you had an impact in terms of social changes. The coaching for social impact project, on the other hand, are a little bit more succinct. So this one has been developed last year. They've been planned since 2019, 2020. And for now, we have identified 7 organizations that we work closely with. And this organization really, we work with the staff, the leadership, and this is a 1-year coaching engagement. And the role is really, and the goal is really to be able to work with the leadership to develop a social impact metric that is customized on the organization and the specific goal. And at the end of the 1-year engagement, to be able to see how them having access to coaching has had an impact on their specific organization. The one common factor with the Ignite, they also support the United Nations 2030 agenda. So they have to support one of the 17 goals, but really these are the key differences. And lastly, for the coaching for social impact project, it's really to support social entrepreneurs and to be able to identify best practices for which coaches can be able to be a resource and be able to have an impact in that sense, and hopefully to be able to scale up and ultimately perhaps develop a toolkit such as Ignite, but really to be more tailored to social entrepreneurs and ultimately maybe even go into social innovation. So I hope that answered the question, and I'm happy to answer additional questions to the chat. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you so much, Coura. Foundation's been very busy, as you can see. So thank you for all you're doing. The next question goes to Robert from Coaching in Organizations. What are the requirements within an organization to become a CIO member?
So thanks, Pat. Our mission really is to enhance the internal coaching capabilities of organizations throughout the world. We really focus on making sure that organizations have all the tools and resources available to them through what ICF provides, building this internal coaching capability. So great company would be one where coaching is an integral part of what they do, so that they have internal coaches. One way for chapters to collaborate with us is to identify companies within their geographic location that are building this internal coaching culture. And we can work together, as Steve mentioned, through the regional directors. Also, there is a resource guide that Anik posted in the chat, and we're going to have a live question and answer session for chapters to better able to collaborate with us, and it's going to be on the 6th and 7th of April, so look for that on the resource guide, so that we can answer any questions, we can identify companies together so that we can start working together, and you can reach out to members that traditionally have not joined your chapters. Those coaches that are working internally for organizations could become members, and you can increase your membership that way.
And next, the question goes to Alicia for Thought Leadership Institute. And again, these are some questions that we commonly get, and we thought this would be a great place to have the vice presidents answer them. How is the work of ICF Thought Leadership Institute inclusive on a global level?
Thanks, Pat. Yes, that's a great question. And our work is very much going to be inclusive on a global level because we take a transdisciplinary approach and perspective to our work. And what that means is really looking at including diverse perspectives in the conversations that we're doing through our convenings and making sure that we have unique, differentiated perspectives at the table to generate that collective wisdom that we're creating through the convenings. We've identified, we use the term wisdom weavers as an example to draw in subject matter experts from all over the globe and just very different backgrounds to bring together those unique, diverse perspectives to essentially come together in this nice, complex, harmonious whole. So that's our approach. And so as an example, in the Future of Work convening, our very first convening, we had 8 wisdom weavers that represented 5 continents. So Australia, India, US, Europe. So we definitely make sure that we are bringing in subject matter experts and perspectives from all over the globe in our convenings that we are holding.
Great. Thank you, Alicia. And I think you can probably already see how much more we can accomplish by this new structure. Each of these family organizations is doing amazing work, and I'm really proud that they can share it with you here. Steve, there's another question coming out to you. Is there any chapter reorganization needed to align with the ICF ecosystem?
Great question. I think the first answer needs to be a no. We do not think you need to reorganize in any way to meet this structure, but it's a no with a but. And I'd say there's 2 things to think about with that no. One is, in theory, as we move forward, it could change, but changes wouldn't be necessarily because of our structure. It would be to facilitate your operations. For example, most boards have a director of membership position. That's a structural thing that helps facilitate what the operations of a chapter are. And any, structural changes we might suggest or request would be in line with that sort of thinking. And that, with that said, in addition to that, this is a structure that, as Magda explained, is positioning this overarching org to be successful. There's best practices in terms of chapter operations and chapter structure, and that we'll use those as our guide to sort of, make suggestions about how you operate, how you set yourselves up to be successful, and communicate and train on that going forward.
Fabulous. Thank you, Steve. And next for Carrie, what's the best way to get my credentialing questions answered? That's a big question, Carrie, so I'll turn that over to you.
It is a big and important question. Thank you so much for sharing it, Pat. Credentials and standards and the credentialing program at ICF is certainly not a new program within our new structure. Rather, we've been credentialing professional coaches since 1998. So it is one of the longest standing offerings of the ICF. And yet it's very complex and it's very robust and it's very rigorous. And so there are always really good questions about the credentialing program. We offer 3 levels of credentialing that allow coach practitioners to independently validate their skills, their knowledge, their experience, and their competence in the coaching competencies and in coaching practice, and to demonstrate their commitment and that they meet the highest standards in ethical and professional practice in coaching. That's a big deal. We know that credential holders renew their membership. They stay involved and engaged in the ICF at higher rates than non-credential holders. And so these are really important values to ICF and to chapters. We want to be sure to support individuals and chapters in answering any questions about the credentialing process. And so we offer a number of ways to do that. I'm going to build on something that Steve shared earlier, which is your regional contacts are going to be important resources for you as chapters. They are well-versed in credentialing, and if you ask a question that they do not know, they can connect with the ICF credentials and standards. So that's a wonderful first point of contact. We also offer a credentialing video that you may have already seen that provides a really in-depth overview of the credentialing process for all 3 levels of credentialing. It can be a wonderful resource to individuals, but it can also be a really wonderful resource to chapters to share within their membership. Additionally, ICF Credentials and Standards for the past 2 years has proudly partnered with ICF professional coaches to offer quarterly credentialing informational calls that build on the video that I just referenced and provides an opportunity for individuals and chapter leaders to ask in-depth questions about the credentialing process with members of our professional coaches and credentials and standards staff team. So we have experts who answer those questions right there on a live call. We offer those on a quarterly basis, and we offer those at 2 times for each call to really support our global community. And finally, last but not least, this is a really important resource to share with you all, is support at coachingfederation.org is our direct line to the credential expert team. And they can also answer a number of questions, whether they be broad questions or specific to an individual's credentialing application. It's a wonderful resource to both chapters as well as individual candidates for the credentials. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Carrie. Great work. Great work. And now for Luke, what impact do the new ICF accreditation levels have on applying for a credential?
Thanks so much for that, Pat. As many of you know that have been on the call on November 15th last year, ICF Coach Training sort of announced an evolution of who we would be as an ICF family organization and part of the One ICF ecosystem, which included a name change to ICF Coaching Education, as well as a transition to a new leveled accreditation system, replacing the legacy system of ACTP and ACSTH, with also updated guidelines for CCE. What that really means for both education training providers and credentialing applicants is that, one, we are really up-leveling the quality of the training and the education that's happening globally. We appointed a global task force which really looked at this and took it seriously, where we even looked at other trade associations. We look at architecture, we look at nursing, we looked at other things of what those principles of education were. So, you know, our philosophy is the better education and training that a coach receives, the better coach that they'll be. And so really the purpose of sort of the evolution of where we are with accreditation is that we want to up-level the quality. We want to put it on a global scale where it is more resonating. As we've grown leaps and bounds the past 2 years of being able to be part of the ecosystem in that. What it means for credentialing applicants going forward is that the performance appraisals and assessment process, if you attend an accredited program, will be done on the local institutional or school level at that point, which will make for a quicker credentialing process while not sacrificing the quality of that. And so we've worked really, really hand in hand and in great partnership with ICF Credentials and Standards and Carrie and her team to make sure that our boards were even working together and that our board officers were talking about the changes and the implications. But to sum it up simply, it means that we are really up-leveling the quality that we want our education and training providers to have globally, which is now over 2,700 of those globally, which and is growing by leaps and bounds. And we want consumers and in the marketplace, when they're looking for coach education and coach training, to choose an accredited program by ICF, because they understand that that curriculum and that organization has been vetted and verified, and that it's a reputable training and things like that. So we have many more things to come, but really all in the name of quality.
Good work. Thank you so much. I'm noticing a lot of questions coming in through the chat, and I thank the vice presidents and the other ICF staff that are on this call or this program answering them. We do have some time now. We want to hear from you as chapter leaders, and what additional questions do you have for our panel? Please use your raised hand icon. ICF Strategic Development Director Anik Clemens will call on you to ask your questions as time allows. Looks like we have about 10 or 15 minutes. Anik, do you see some hands?
Great, thank you, Pat. There was a question in the chat that I thought might be good for somebody on the panel to answer. It's from Leslie Shank in Toronto. Do we have a perspective on optimum size of a chapter within one ICF as the engine? It seems smaller may be better in getting closer to the communities we serve.
Well, I'd love to answer that, Anik, if that's okay with everyone. I think it's an amazing question, and it strikes me because we've been talking about it on the staff side, and I actually had the opportunity to speak live with some chapter leaders in Jordan last week, literally about this topic. I'd answer it this way. First is, I think you have to acknowledge that the engine that drives a chapter is volunteers. I mean, there's many other things. So there's a need for revenue, but at the end of the day, if you don't have volunteers, it all falls apart and starts to constrict. And with that said, there needs to be a certain amount of members in a chapter to facilitate healthy succession planning, where leaders rotate through and you're never at a place where you are recycling and or don't have new leaders. And all of us, or many of us, I should say, have been in that smaller chapter where people are coming to the end of the term and it's the discussion about, all right, who's up next? And everyone's head goes down because you're weary from your volunteering and there aren't enough people. So at the end of the day, that's sort of the first place that I start. And with that said, when I think about the other orgs I've worked at that have had global chapter networks, what I would offer is that I believe the healthy number that facilitates long-term success for a chapter year after year, decade after decade, is 100. And I know that that feels large because a lot of our chapters at this point are under that number, but it's the number we should strive for. It's the number that makes that pain point of finding new, fresh volunteers not a pain point anymore. If that's a benchmark that feels far, I'd at least say 75 should be the number that everybody's striving for, because I think it can happen successfully there as well.
If I may add to it, Anik, because Steve is a beautiful but somewhat recent addition to our family. I do remember good old days when there was 3 people that was enough to create a chapter. And as you can imagine, for a very young, budding organization, yeah, that was appropriate to just create the enthusiasm around gathering people and engaging people. But I would agree with Steve that in order to sustain because you all are volunteers, you know how much work it takes to run successful chapter. So having enough people to call on, to invite, to engage is important for the sustainable sustainability and longevity of the chapter. In some areas, we know that we may never get that 100 or 150, as was suggested in a chat box. But at the same time, if you are a larger chapter, think about it. Maybe you can think about focusing your activities of different portions of your membership in a way that would support the growth of the whole organization moving forward.
Thank you, Magda. And we have several chapters over 1,000 members, even a couple over 2,000 members. And Leslie has her hand up again with ICF Toronto. Her chapter, I think, Leslie, you have about 1,200 members now in your chapter, and you're wondering when is it too big, or is there a too big of a chapter?
Well, so I mean, if that's the question, just to add my 2 cents, I don't know that there is a maximum number. I mean, I would state that the larger a chapter gets, it might require some more complex governance structures, more committees, perhaps the consideration of different staff support structures, but I don't think there's a too large number in any way, sense or form.
I would agree with that. And also we do have some chapters in different parts of the world that, although they're large under the umbrella of a chapter, they would organize themselves more into a regional areas. Even when we're talking ICF Toronto, we have some chapters in Asia in particular, where, as you know, it takes about 3 hours to go from one side of a town to another. So they would create almost like a branches of individual chapter members, so they can connect. Somebody asked earlier, what is the right chapter to keep that community going? So you may think about all these different solutions, and again, our team with Steve being in lead can help you at least visit with different ways chapters organize.
Thank you, Magda and Steve. I see VG has her hand up from ICF Chennai.
Thanks, Anik. I have 2 questions if time permits, but very quick questions, and one suggestion, if I may. Go with the question first. The changes in coach education, right? The level 1, level 2, and level 3. I'm assuming they will have implications on credentialing paths, etc. When will we get clarity on that? That's my first question.
I actually will since we're speaking directly about credentialing paths, I will defer to my esteemed colleague, Carrie Abner, and let her answer that question.
Thank you, Luke, and thank you, VG. It's a great question. Yes, so we're going to be announcing some updates to our credentialing pathways in the first week of April. So as a chapter leader, you may have already received a preview that this news is coming, and we will be delighted to share specifics around that the first week of April. But you are precisely correct, VG, that the changes in coaching education we are excited about them in credentials and standards. We are celebrating those changes as we think they are going to provide high quality, to Luke's point, but also an easier to navigate pathway for individual students as they begin their coaching and hopefully their credentialing journey. So we're very excited about it too. And this year, you will be seeing some updates to our credentialing pathways to reflect those new level-based accreditation designations. So we're very excited about that.
Thanks, Carrie. Thank you, Luke. Annie, can I place my second question?
Please, VG, go ahead.
Okay. So one of the things that as chapters, and that's been a huge engine for growth as well, for us has been the whole piece around brand building, marketing, social media, and things like that. And that's also a place where we probably don't have the best resources. We learn through our own trial and error and things like that. So which is the team in the one ICF structure that we can reach out to for really subject matter expertise that we want to sort of bounce off and get guidance, if we get stuck?
Thank you, Vijay. I'll take this one because that's me being remiss of not mentioning that the 6 family organizations and the overarching one ICF is being supported by a very robust team and a very important team of people who serve us all. These are the marketing and communications people. These are the research people. These are the education or learning and development people. These are our ethics and regulatory colleagues. These are all supporting the entire one ICF. So especially the question of building the brand is very important. So our team led by Renata Lurch is there, and we can, I would still suggest that you connect with your regional team. They know best how to reach into the resources of our common team, and when and if possible, and at the granularity level that we will have to commonly agree to, we will certainly be able to support you.
Thank you so much, Magda. And the session is great. And my request is, this sort of gives the feeling that one ICF is, is real, right? And there are different parts to it and not hazy pieces. So my suggestion and request is, can we do something like a live one ICF quarterly call where, these kind of, some questions may be very basic, silly, some of them might be thought-provoking. We can just place it all and get our responses immediately. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Vijay. Anik, we have about 5 minutes left, and so if there are other questions, you can call on someone else.
Great, thank you, Pat. And I see Cosmo's hand up from ICF Greece. And you're on mute. There you go.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for giving me the chance to talk. I want to ask something that is a little bit philosophical, and it's not necessary to be answered, but I heard something that really problematized the other day, attending a demonstration coaching. And I hear one lady saying that, well, for ACC was okay. This has some extensions for somebody who receives coaching. What does it mean? Does it mean that if I have an ACC will be so-and-so and a PCC should be better, and MCC is the one that will give me what I expect? Would we consider such a distinction going to a doctor? And here we have even more subtle nuances because it has to do with psyche, with mind, with brain, etc. I don't know. I was a little bit problematized listening to that, and that's why I bring to you. It's not necessary to answer it, but I would love to hear at some point a position on that.
Thank you so much, Cosmos. I really appreciate your sharing that, and I think I would respond by saying that our purpose for providing 3 levels of credentials is precisely what you are, what kind of your intention is. It's right. It's about providing support, demonstrating the competence of the coach wherever they are in their coaching journey. Not a good, better, best by any stretch of the imagination, but a demonstration of independently validated coaching skills at various stages that are designed for various stages of a coach's journey of their career path. So thank you for sharing that. I share. I appreciate your sharing the story, because it is problematic, and it's really good information for us to have so that we can be aware of and address some of those connotations that may exist out in the marketplace. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Great, thank you. We've got about 1 minute left. I don't know if there's another hand up, Anik, or if we want to bring the panel to a close at this point. Do you see another question?
I haven't seen any additional questions, so I think we're okay to close the panel. Thanks, Pat.
Okay, thank you. I really want to thank all of you for your questions, both in the chat and live, as well as thank you to all the vice presidents and to Magda for bringing more light to what is this one ICF and the family organizations. I wish you the best. I will see you at the closing and possibly in some of the other sessions.
Well, thank you, Pat, and panel members. And what an informative and high quality panel conversation that was. So appreciated. And just to take the opportunity to acknowledge our wonderful staff in ICF, our VPs, who are just simply an outstanding group of professionals. We so appreciate all you do working in partnership with our volunteers. Just some key standouts for me in terms of that panel discussion. We heard from Magda about our sphere of impact versus our sphere of influence, and how we can use that to amplify social progress and of course, generate more market opportunities for high quality coaching, which is what we are all about working collectively. We heard from Coura about social impact and the great work that's going on in ICF Foundation and all that excellent work that they're doing. From Robert around internal coaching capability, the need to develop this within organizations, and tapping into coaches who may not be chapter members. Again, significant growth opportunities. From Alicia, we heard about the wisdom weavers, subject matters experts in thought leadership, again, crucial for the development of ICF. Carrie spoke about credentialed holders and how they are more likely to stay connected and involved with ICF, growing our organization. And of course, Luke spoke about ICF coaching education and the ongoing focus on improving quality. Again, a must for all of us involved in the industry. So now let's transition into small breakout groups to discuss the following. And the questions will be shared on screen and in the chat. And what we want to get back from this really is what information is most important for you based on the conversation in the panel that we've heard regarding the ICF ecosystem. And maybe if you could share with us 3 key points of the ICF ecosystem that you will share with your chapter, maybe the key learnings that you have picked up from the panel discussion. So make sure, as always, to identify your feedback person, your group leader, and we're looking forward to hearing your insights from all groups in about 15 minutes or so. Thanks, everyone, and see you then. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that discussion, certainly very rich content in some of the rooms that I was in. And now let's hear from a few of our breakout group leaders on the key learnings and discussions. And Malcolm is going to assist with this part of the program. So raise your hand, Malcolm will call on you. And for those of you who don't get the opportunity to speak, really grateful if you could input your comments in the chat. Thanks so much, and over to you, Malcolm.
Thanks, Rosarie. So yeah, please do raise your hands if you have some wonderful feedback from your groups. I know the group that I was in, there were some interesting discussions in that one. And please also make use of the chat. Somebody in our group says, I'm leaving with more questions than ideas, so which is good. And as coaches, we believe we sit in those questions. So please do share with us. Who would like to go first? I'm not seeing a hand as yet, so let me just scroll. No. There we go. Layla.
Yes, hello. So I was in the group room 3 with Linda McLaughlin, Mary Catherine, Julianne Phillips, Mary Fury, hopefully I said that right, Barbara Alfers, and Jody Jacob McAvey and Svay. And so kind of what we talked about is the idea of the 6 family organizations. It is still very confusing. So it was very helpful to watch that video today. I think there still needs to be some clarification on that.
Hello, I heard my name.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead, Layla, yeah.
Oh, yes. So, so they thought that that was very helpful. That is definitely something they want to bring back to their chapters. Also, it was so helpful that it was thought to maybe kind of further that and have videos maybe created that chapters can share or chapter leaders can share with their chapters, because there was a lot of discussion about the confusion of the 6 FOs. And really just communication, it's really being big on communication, the new credentialing. You know, there's a lot of questions being asked of chapters, a lot of questions, you know, it's taking too much time to respond to everything. So really just trying to figure out, you know, what is on the chapter level that can be done, what needs to kind of go back to headquarters, you know, things of that nature. But really a lot of it was about communication. And if there's anything else I'm missing, guys, please, you know, from my group, jump on in. But that was about it.
Thanks very much, Layla. And that's really rich feedback. It's so important that we're having these honest conversations and honest discussions. And obviously we've got more to do in terms of our communications. And that's the whole point of the GLF. So well done and thanks for sharing.
Rosario, there's a question that came up in my group, and I'm just seeing something from Sway. She says synergy between PC and CIO, external and internal coaches as a team. There was a question in the group that I was in, was to ask a question in terms of coaches in organization which got internal coaches. How do they collaborate with those so that those coaches can become part and members of the local chapters? So I'm not sure if Robert maybe has got an idea in terms of how chapters can access that information so that they can invite those internal coaches to become members of the chapters and coexist and support one another in that. So now I'm putting Robert on the spot if he's here.
I'm sure Robert won't mind. Is he here with us? I don't see.
Just see if I can find him.
I think he stepped away.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think he did respond in the chat. I did notice that coming in earlier. And I think, again, it was around reaching out to the chapters and sharing that information around, obviously, who's interested in terms of the organization and how we can collaborate and obviously grow and enhance the entire offering for both people who want to become coaches and obviously for the coaching organizations who are trying to grow and expand their offering to their internal employees. I think that was really, where he was coming from. And maybe you wanted to come in on that, did you?
Repeat the question for me, Rosarie.
I think, Malcolm, the question that was raised was in the chat was really, how do individuals who are in coaching in organizations but are not necessarily in chapters, how do we collaborate and share and grow and expand our offering so that we're aware that there are individuals there that might have a contribution to make?
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And I think there's a few things that, we can do. So we have our professional coaches membership, we have our CIO memberships, and there can definitely be some synergy there. One thing that I've seen that chapters have taken upon themselves is to introduce a community of practice for internal coaches. And so this is a way for our internal coaches to be part of a chapter, have a community. And so as a CIO member, also affiliating with a chapter and having a community at the chapter level.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Alicia. Appreciate that.
Rosario, there's another question from Alicia, and we were wondering, where does DEIJ fit into the ecosystem? So where does the diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice fit into the ecosystem?
Well, this is a huge area for ICF and one that we have been doing a huge amount of work on. And I don't know if people picked it up. I think Magda did say in her contribution there around establishing the task force in relation to DEIJ, and that we are going to actually be expanding this. I know Tanya Eccles is on our own board here, is very passionate about this area, and she's actually going to be representing PC on the task force. And obviously in terms of growing members, looking at the entire ecosystem, this is an area I think that we've got to advance. We've got to be more forward thinking on, and certainly ICF is doing all of that and will be showing form and progress in that in the next 12 months or so. Again, there's a key input in relation to that task force on the website. So if I could ask people maybe to have a look at that, and if you want to come back with any questions, comments, queries, or any additional insights, please feel free to do that and we will take those on board.